Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about this before you answer. When was the last time you sat in complete silence and actually heard silence? Not that thin, high-pitched whine that lives somewhere behind your eardrums. Not that low, persistent hum that seems to be baked right into the inside of your skull. Not the ringing that's there when you wake up at 2 a.m. and still there when your alarm goes off in the morning. I'm talking about real, actual quiet. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance you can't even remember what that feels like. And here's what I need you to understand right now before we go any further. That sound isn't random. It isn't just getting old, and it is absolutely not something you simply have to accept and learn to live with for the rest of your life. That ringing is your body sending you a very specific, very urgent message. And the problem isn't that the message is confusing. The problem is that most doctors aren't trained to read it. What you're hearing is a nutritional distress signal. Your auditory system, the nerves, the blood vessels, the microscopic hair cells deep inside your cochlea is running on empty, and your brain, brilliant and desperate as it is, has started filling in the silence with a noise that isn't there. Today, I'm going to decode that signal for you. We are going to go through exactly what your body is missing, why conventional medicine keeps missing it, and what you can start doing starting tonight to begin turning the volume down on that internal noise. My name is Dr. Franklin. I research field of preventive health and longevity for older adults. And I have spent years studying one of the most underappreciated connections in all of senior health, the relationship between what you put in your body and what your nervous system does in response. So, stay with me because what I'm about to share could change the way you sleep, the way you think, and the way you experience every quiet moment for the rest of your life. I want to tell you about a woman named Gloria, 71 years old, retired school teacher, sharp as a tack, funny, full of life. She came to see me about 14 months ago, and the first thing she said when she sat down was, "Doctor, I feel like someone left a television on inside my head and lost the remote." She'd been living with tinnitus for nearly 4 years. She'd seen 2 ear specialists. She'd been given a white noise machine, a referral to a therapist for adjustment counseling, and a pamphlet about hearing aids. Not once, not a single time had anyone sat down with her and asked, "Gloria, what are you eating? What are your nutrient levels? What does your circulation look like?" And when I ordered a comprehensive nutritional panel on her, what we found was completely predictable to me and completely shocking to her. She was critically deficient in 3 key nutrients. Her inflammatory markers were elevated. Her circulation to her inner ear was compromised, and her nervous system was essentially misfiring. This was not a hearing problem. This was a biological infrastructure problem. Now, here's the part that matters most. Within 11 weeks of addressing those deficiencies, Gloria came back into my office and said, "It's still there, but it's like somebody finally turned the volume down." By month 5, she described it as a background whisper instead of a scream. That is not a coincidence. That is nutritional science doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Let's talk about how. To understand why certain deficiencies cause ringing in your ears, you need a brief tour of the most delicate piece of biological equipment in your entire body. Inside your inner ear, tucked deep inside your skull, is a fluid-filled chamber called the cochlea. Think of it like a tiny snail shell. Lining the inside of that chamber are thousands of microscopic sensory cells. We call them hair cells. And each one of those cells is responsible for translating vibrations into electrical signals that your brain interprets as sound. Now here's the critical part. Each of those hair cells is fed by one of the tiniest blood vessels in your entire body. A structure so narrow that red blood cells have to pass through it, literally single file. A single thread of hair is thick by comparison. When that blood supply is compromised, when it's sluggish, inflamed, or depleted of key nutrients, those hair cells don't just stop working. They start misfiring. They begin sending random, erratic electrical signals to your brain. And your brain, because it is hardwired to make sense of everything, interprets those random signals as sound. That's the ringing. That's the hiss. That's the tone that won't turn off. Now, research published in the Journal of Neurological Sciences has shown something remarkable. Tinnitus isn't just a malfunction in the ear. It's a malfunction in the brain's ability to suppress the error messages it's receiving. When the ear sends faulty signals long enough, the brain stops trying to filter them out and just starts treating the noise as normal. This is called auditory cortex reorganization, and it's the reason this condition feels so permanent. Your brain has literally restructured itself around the noise. But here's the hopeful part. The brain is also plastic. It can reorganize again in the other direction if we give it the right raw materials. Before we get started, take a moment to say hello in the comments. Tell me your name and where you're watching from. I read every comment and I'd love to know who I'm helping today. Now, let's get into the countdown. Deficiency number 1, magnesium, the nervous system's off switch. Let's begin with the one most people have never connected to hearing: magnesium. Here's what you need to know about magnesium in your ears. Deep inside your cochlea, there are receptors called NMDA receptors. These receptors control how intensely your auditory nerve fires. When magnesium is present in adequate amounts, it sits inside those receptors and essentially acts as a plug, preventing them from overfiring. When magnesium is low, those receptors are wide open. Every sound, every vibration causes an exaggerated neural response. The gain is turned all the way up, and your brain, overwhelmed by the constant static, starts producing its own noise to compensate. Scientists call this glutamate excitotoxicity. I call it an auditory meltdown. The alarming thing, studies estimate that over 50% of adults over 60 are not getting adequate magnesium. And this is not because they're not eating vegetables. It's because modern agricultural soil has been so depleted that the magnesium content in leafy greens today is a fraction of what it was 50 years ago. You can be eating spinach every single day and still be deficient. And here's something Gloria told me that gave me chills. She said, "My ringing is always worse on the days I'm most stressed." That is textbook magnesium depletion. Stress hormones actively pull magnesium out of your cells. The more stressed you are, the more depleted you become, the louder the ringing gets. The foods I recommended to Gloria for magnesium: dark leafy greens, raw pumpkin seeds, black beans, wild-caught halibut, and avocado. Not in a pill, in a meal where the cofactors for absorption are present. Deficiency number 2, vitamin B12, the insulation your nerves are crying for. I want you to picture an old electrical cable, maybe one in an older house that hasn't been updated in decades. The rubber insulation on the outside has cracked. It's fraying, and when electricity runs through that wire, it doesn't travel cleanly from point A to point B. It leaks out. It sparks. It creates interference. That is precisely what happens to your auditory nerve when your B12 levels are too low. Vitamin B12 is essential for maintaining the myelin sheath, the protective insulating layer that wraps around your nerve fibers. Without enough B12, that sheath degrades. And when the auditory nerve loses its insulation, the electrical signals it carries from your inner ear to your brain begin to leak. Your brain doesn't interpret this as silence. It interprets it as sound, a constant, sourceless, maddening sound. Now, here's what I need you to hear very clearly, because this is where the conventional medical system is failing people like Gloria every single day. Standard lab tests will flag a B12 deficiency somewhere around 200 picograms per milliliter. But research in functional neurology has shown that neurological symptoms, including tinnitus, brain fog, and peripheral tingling, can begin appearing at levels below 400. In older adults, I look for levels between 600 and 900 before I'm satisfied. Gloria's B12 was 310 when she first came to me. Her doctor had told her it was within normal range. And here's the biological reason seniors are particularly vulnerable. As we age, our stomach produces less of a compound called intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor is the protein that allows your gut to absorb B12 from food. Without it, you can eat all the beef and eggs and salmon in the world and still be starving at the cellular level. This means many seniors need B12 in a form that bypasses the gut entirely, sublingual methylcobalamin, or in some cases, injections. Your doctor can guide you on what's appropriate for your individual situation. Food sources that help: wild-caught salmon, sardines, pasture-raised eggs, clams, and nutritional yeast. If you're still here with me and finding this helpful, take a moment to type 2 in the comments. It lets me know you're watching and getting value from this. Deficiency number 3, zinc, the antioxidant armor your inner ear depends on. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Your inner ear contains one of the highest concentrations of zinc of any tissue in your entire body. That's not an accident. The process of converting sound waves into electrical signals creates enormous amounts of oxidative stress. Essentially, it generates free radicals. Zinc is the primary antioxidant shield protecting your cochlear hair cells from that oxidative damage. Without it, those cells age rapidly, malfunction, and begin sending the phantom signals we've been talking about. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Otolaryngology found that patients with chronic tinnitus had significantly lower serum zinc levels compared to healthy controls. And supplementing with zinc led to measurable improvements in tinnitus severity in a meaningful percentage of participants. But here's the hidden trap I see constantly with zinc: absorption sabotage. You might be eating zinc-rich foods, pumpkin seeds, beef, chickpeas, cashews, but if you're also consuming high amounts of phytic acid from refined grains, or if you're a heavy coffee drinker, you are actively blocking zinc from being absorbed in your gut. You are nutritionally wealthy on paper and bankrupt in practice. I also want to mention something that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Certain common over-the-counter medications, including some pain relievers taken regularly, can damage cochlear hair cells directly through oxidative mechanisms. These are called ototoxic substances. If you are taking any long-term medications and you're experiencing tinnitus, please have a conversation with your physician about potential ototoxic effects. This is a real and under-recognized contributor. If this has been helpful so far, consider sharing this with a friend or loved one who is dealing with tinnitus or concerns about their hearing. Most people don't realize how deeply nutrients like zinc can protect the inner ear from long-term damage. And a simple like helps more people find this information. Deficiency factor 4, vitamin D3, the repair foreman who nobody's calling. If magnesium is the off switch and B12 is the insulation and zinc is the armor, then vitamin D3 is the foreman who makes sure all the repair crews actually show up. D3 is not just a vitamin, it functions as a neurosteroid, a compound that directly regulates gene expression in your nervous system, including the genes that control inflammation along your auditory pathway. When D3 levels are low, chronic low-grade neurological inflammation goes unchecked. The tiny blood vessels supplying your inner ear stay constricted. Repair processes stall, and the auditory nerve, already under stress, stays stuck in a state of chronic irritation. A growing body of research, including studies from universities in Europe and Asia, has consistently found that adults with persistent, bothersome tinnitus have lower average D3 levels than adults without it. And this deficiency is staggeringly common in seniors. Many older adults have limited sun exposure. Add in the use of sunscreen, living in northern latitudes, or spending most of your time indoors, and it becomes almost impossible to maintain adequate D3 levels through sunlight alone. I recommend getting your 25-hydroxy vitamin D levels tested. For neurological and immune function, I want to see levels between 50 and 80 ng/ml. Most people I see are sitting somewhere between 18 and 30, and they've been told that's fine. It is not fine. Not for your auditory nerve. Food sources, wild-caught fatty fish, egg yolks, and fortified foods. But for most seniors, strategic, sensible sunlight, about 15 to 20 minutes of direct morning exposure on your arms and legs several times per week, is irreplaceable. Deficiency factor 5, omega-3 fatty acids, lubricating the pipeline to your ears. Let me give you one final piece of this puzzle that ties everything together. All the nutrients we've discussed, the magnesium, the B12, the zinc, the D3, they all have to actually get to your inner ear to do any good. And remember those microscopic blood vessels we talked about? The ones thinner than a human hair? If your blood is thick, sticky, and full of inflammatory compounds, which is increasingly common with age, poor diet, and chronic stress, those nutrients get stuck in traffic. They never reach the cochlea. They never reach the auditory nerve. Omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA found in fatty fish, perform two critical functions here. First, they reduce systemic inflammation, which allows those tiny vessels to dilate and carry blood more freely. Second, they improve the fluidity of cell membranes throughout the body, including in the hair cells of the inner ear, making them more responsive, more resilient, and more capable of functioning properly. Think of omega-3s as the oil that keeps the whole auditory machine running smoothly. Gloria told me she barely ate fish. She had been taking a cheap fish oil supplement she bought at a discount store for years. But fish oil quality varies enormously, and rancid fish oil, which is unfortunately common, actually contributes to oxidative stress rather than reducing it. We switched her to a high-quality, third-party tested omega-3 source and added 2 servings of wild-caught salmon per week to her diet. This was part of the turning point, the circulation factor. We've talked about nutrients, but I need to give you one more layer. Circulation. Even if your nutritional profile is perfect, none of it reaches your inner ear without healthy blood flow. And here's the compounding problem for adults over 60. Poor circulation and nutritional deficiency are a vicious cycle. Low magnesium causes blood vessels to constrict. Low D3 allows inflammation to damage vessel walls. Low omega-3 makes blood more viscous. And all of this makes the hair-thin vessels of your inner ear the first to suffer. There are 3 natural vasodilators, substances that help relax and open blood vessels, that I incorporate into the nutritional protocols I design for my patients. The first is ginger. Fresh ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogaols that have been shown in multiple studies to improve microcirculation. A quarter teaspoon of fresh grated ginger in hot water or in your cooking daily is a gentle, powerful tool. The second is garlic. Allicin, the active compound in fresh garlic, reduces blood platelet aggregation, making blood thinner and more able to move through small vessels. Raw or lightly cooked garlic, ideally 2 cloves daily, is what I recommend. The third is ginkgo biloba, one of the most studied natural compounds for tinnitus. A review of clinical trials found that ginkgo biloba extract produced meaningful improvements in tinnitus symptoms, particularly in cases connected to reduced cochlear circulation. It works by improving microvascular blood flow. Please speak with your doctor before adding any supplement, particularly if you're on blood-thinning medications, as ginkgo can interact with certain drugs. When we open the pipeline and supply the right raw materials, the inner ear begins to respond. One thing I want to explain that most people don't know, your inner ear has a biological clock. Your cochlea follows your circadian rhythm. At night, your body enters a phase of deep cellular repair, and your auditory system is part of that repair cycle. Your hair cells try to regenerate, your auditory nerve tries to re-insulate, your brain tries to recalibrate. But repair requires raw materials, and if those raw materials, the magnesium, the B12, the zinc, the D3, are not circulating in adequate amounts when your body tries to do this nighttime maintenance, the repair stalls. Your brain detects the incomplete repair, and it amplifies the error signal. This is why so many people with tinnitus report that the ringing feels louder in the late evening and the early morning hours. Your body is trying to fix the problem, finding the materials missing, and essentially sounding an alarm. This is also why I place enormous emphasis on your final meal of the day. If you eat a nutrient-dense meal in the early evening, rich in the specific compounds your auditory system needs, you are loading the shelves of your internal pharmacy just in time for your body's overnight repair shift. Think of it as restocking before the crew arrives. So let's make this practical. Let me tell you exactly what that evening meal looks like. This is what I call the auditory rescue plate. Start with a palm-sized fillet of wild-caught baked salmon. This gives you your omega-3s, your D3, your B12, 3 critical deficiencies addressed in a single protein source. Alongside it, build a large base of baby spinach and steamed broccoli. This covers your magnesium and a wide spectrum of antioxidants to protect those cochlear hair cells from oxidative stress. Add a generous handful of raw pumpkin seeds on top. These are one of the best bioavailable sources of zinc you can eat, and they also contain magnesium, giving you a double dose. Dress everything with cold-pressed olive oil, fresh lemon juice, and a generous amount of fresh grated ginger. Your circulatory support working to open the pipelines and get everything moving. On the side, half an avocado, more magnesium, healthy fats for nutrient absorption, and anti-inflammatory compounds. This is not a complicated meal. It takes less than 25 minutes to prepare, and the biological payload it delivers to your auditory system is remarkable. Gloria made a version of this meal 4 to 5 times per week, starting in month 2. She told me, "Doctor, it's the first time food has ever felt like medicine to me." That's exactly what it is. I want to be completely honest with you, the way I wish more doctors would be. This is not an overnight fix. Your auditory nerve did not become depleted in a week, and it will not fully recover in a week. What we are doing is a slow, deliberate, systematic process of restocking the system that was starved and reopening the channels that were blocked. In my experience with patients, the first signs of change, a softening of the ringing, a brief pocket of quiet, tend to appear somewhere between weeks 3 and 7. Full, meaningful improvement often takes 3 to 4 months of consistent nutritional support. But here is what I want to leave you with today. That ringing is not a life sentence. It is a message. It is your body, in its extraordinary wisdom, telling you that something needs to change. And the beautiful thing about your body, even at 60, at 70, at 80, is that it still wants to heal. It is still reaching toward repair. Every single night, your inner ear is trying to rebuild itself. It just needs you to give it what it's been asking for. So tonight, make the salmon, add the spinach, grab the pumpkin seeds, and start listening to your body in a different way. If this video helped you see your tinnitus differently, I want you to do one thing right now. Share it with someone you know who is suffering in silence, because millions of people have been told there is no answer. You and I both know that's not true. And drop a comment below. Tell me how long you've been living with this ringing. I read every single one. Those stories shape everything I research and everything I bring back to you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of your hearing. It's how you stay connected to every voice. every sound, and every moment that makes life meaningful.